Confidence is often misunderstood as something mysterious that some people simply have and others don't. But the truth is far more empowering. Confidence is a skill, one that grows through small, repeated victories. It isn't lightning striking from the sky, and it isn't a personality trait reserved for the naturally bold. It's a slow accumulation of proof moments where you showed up, moments where you pushed through, moments where you earned the right to trust yourself. When you begin to see confidence this way, you stop waiting for it and start building it because you finally understand that it comes from action, not from wishing. Every small win becomes a brick in your foundation, and even the smallest brick matters. Think back to any time in your life when you felt genuinely confident. Maybe it was learning to ride a bike, mastering a skill at work, or speaking up when you once stayed quiet. You didn't wake up magically fearless that day. You built the ability step by step. You fell off the bike before you rode it. You made mistakes at the job before you excelled. You hesitated before your voice became steady. Confidence is the reward for staying in the game long enough to see progress. And progress doesn't require massive leaps. It only asks for consistency. Even a small step forward counts because the mind remembers effort. The mind remembers follow through. The mind remembers growth. What most people overlook is how much power small victories truly carry. You don't need to conquer mountains to change how you feel about yourself. You just need to conquer the small moments you usually avoid. Waking up when you said you would. Finishing the task you've been delaying. Saying no when it's easier to say yes. These choices seem minor, but they are the training ground where confidence is built. Each one tells your mind, I can rely on myself. And when you can rely on yourself, your confidence becomes unshakable because it is rooted in experiences, not empty belief. The challenge is that many people chase big dramatic transformations without respecting the small decisions that make those transformations possible. They want confidence to appear instantly, but confidence grows the same way a muscle grows through repetition, tension, and showing up even when you don't feel strong. When you lift a weight, the muscle doesn't grow in that moment, it grows afterward because your body responds to effort. Confidence works the exact same way. When you take a meaningful action, your mind responds by upgrading your sense of identity. It learns through repetition that you're someone who does what needs to be done. It learns that you are capable. And the beauty of this process is that it works for absolutely everyone. You don't need extraordinary talent or a unique personality. You only need the willingness to create small wins. Even if you start from zero, even if you feel uncertain or discouraged, you can begin. Because confidence doesn't grow from being fearless, it grows from acting while still feeling afraid. Every time you choose courage over comfort, even in a tiny way, you reinforce the message that you are stronger than your fear. Over time, this becomes your normal state, not because the challenge has disappeared, but because you prove to yourself that you can handle them. What stops most people from building confidence is that they underestimate the value of starting small. They think small wins don't matter. They think progress must be dramatic to count. But confidence doesn't care about the size of the action, it cares about the consistency of the action. Even a tiny step moves you closer to the person you want to become. And the truth is, small actions are the most realistic, the most sustainable, and the most powerful over time. You can stack small wins every day. You can use them to strengthen your identity and reshape your mindset. Before long, those small wins create momentum. Momentum turns into belief. Belief turns into confidence. Small victories also help break the cycle of doubt. When you've failed before or struggled with self-esteem, the mind becomes protective. It whispers that you might fail again. It encourages hesitation to avoid embarrassment or disappointment. But when you start earning small wins, the mind begins to shift. It sees evidence of your progress. It gets comfortable with the idea that you're capable of doing more. Doubt doesn't disappear overnight, but it becomes quieter, weaker, less convincing. Consistent action is what rewrites the story your mind tells you about yourself. This is why confidence is never an accident and never a matter of luck. It's a direct result of how you spend your days. Every day gives you chances to strengthen it or weaken it. Every choice either expands your sense of ability or erodes it. When you treat confidence as a skill, you stop expecting it to fall into your lap. You start working with purpose. You start respecting the process. And the process is simple. Do the small things well, do them consistently, and let the results reshape your identity. The greatest gift of building confidence through small victories is that no one can take it away from you. It isn't dependent on other people's approval or praise. It's not fragile or temporary. It's built from your own actions, your own discipline, your own growth. You earned it through effort, and what you earn becomes part of you. When you understand that confidence is built in this way, you stop waiting for a perfect moment and start creating progress wherever you stand. You stop comparing yourself to others and start competing with who you were yesterday. And slowly, quietly, steadily, you become someone who trusts their own abilities, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger through every small victory that shaped you. Your self-talk is not just background noise. It is the architect of your identity, the silent force shaping what you believe you can and cannot do. Every thought you repeat, every idea you accept, every inner sentence you say about yourself becomes part of the mental blueprint you live by. People often think confidence is determined by talent or circumstances, but long before your actions shape your life, your thoughts shape your actions. The mind is always listening. It records what you tell it, and it adjusts your behavior to match those messages. When you understand this, you begin to see that confidence doesn't start with achievements. It starts with conversations you have with yourself every single day. The problem is that most people speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to someone they love. They downplay their potential, they magnify their flaws, and they rehearse past failures as if reliving them could ever make the future safer. But the mind doesn't interpret these thoughts as harmless commentary. It interprets them as instructions. If you repeatedly tell yourself you're not enough, your mind will filter the world to confirm it. If you tell yourself you always fail, you'll hesitate to try. If you believe you are powerless, your actions will follow that belief. Your self-talk becomes a prophecy you subconsciously fulfill. Not because fate is fixed, but because your identity and behavior begin to align with the words you feed yourself. The opposite is also true. When you speak to yourself with respect, honesty, and belief, you reinforce the idea that you are someone capable of growth. You're not lying to yourself. You're setting a direction. Your mind responds to your thoughts the same way soil responds to seeds. Plant doubt, and doubt grows. Plant courage, and courage begins to take root. It doesn't matter if the seed is small. It just needs to be planted repeatedly, consistently, until the mind begins to accept it as truth. Over time, your identity shifts. You begin to act in alignment with the thoughts you've nurtured. This is why the tone of your self-talk matters just as much as the content. You don't have to speak to yourself with unrealistic positivity, but you do need to speak with clarity and strength. Telling yourself, I can't do this, shuts the mind down. But telling yourself, I'm learning how to do this, keeps the mind open. Telling yourself, I always mess up, traps you in past mistakes. Telling yourself, I improve every time I try, puts your focus on growth. The mind follows the direction of your words, and the direction doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be forward. Most people never pause to question the voice in their head, and that is where the damage begins. Thoughts feel automatic, but they are not uncontrollable. They are habits, mental habits formed through repetition. If you've spent years criticizing yourself, doubt becomes familiar. If you've spent years expecting disappointment, fear becomes automatic. But the remarkable thing about the mind is that any habit, no matter how deeply rooted, can be rewired. You begin by noticing your thoughts, not judging them, but observing them. Then you interrupt the ones that weaken you and replace them with ones that move you in a better direction. It's not about flipping a switch, it's about shifting the pattern. Over time, the new pattern becomes your new normal. Your self-talk forms the lens through which you see the world. Two people can face the same challenge with completely different experiences simply because their inner voice is telling them different stories. One sees a threat because their self-talk says, you're not ready. The other sees an opportunity because their self-talk says, you can figure this out. The challenge didn't change, the story did. And the story is always under your control. You don't choose every circumstance, but you do choose the meaning you give to it. And the meaning determines your confidence. This is why building confidence requires you to take responsibility for the conversation happening in your own mind. You can train your inner voice to support you the same way you train a muscle to grow. It takes consistency, awareness, and repetition. You replace self-criticism with self-direction. You replace hopelessness with perspective. You replace fear with instruction. Instead of saying, "I'm scared," you say, "I'm preparing." Instead of saying, "I can't," you say, "I can try." Instead of saying, "I'm failing," you say, "I'm learning what doesn't work." These shifts seem small, but small mental shifts create massive behavioral changes. Your mind wants to follow you. It just needs clear, firm leadership. And leadership begins with language. You speak to your mind, and your mind shapes your identity in response. This is why people who master their self-talk can transform their confidence without changing anything about their past. They don't rewrite their history, they rewrite their interpretation of it. They look at their struggles and say, "That didn't break me, it built me." They look at their mistakes and say, "I'm wiser because of that." They look at who they used to be and say, "That person was preparing me for who I'm becoming." When you speak this way to yourself, confidence stops being a fragile feeling and becomes a stable identity. And when your self-talk becomes the foundation of your identity, your actions begin to evolve naturally. You take more risks because you trust your ability to grow. You handle setbacks with composure because you trust your ability to recover. You try new things because you trust your ability to adapt. Confidence stops being situational and becomes internal. It stops depending on the approval of others and begins depending on the messages you give yourself. You stop waiting for the world to validate you because you have already validated yourself through the way you think, speak, and interpret your own journey. Your self-talk is the blueprint of your identity, and your identity shapes everything: your choices, your habits, your courage, your confidence. When you take control of that voice, even slightly, you take control of your direction. You become someone who builds confidence from the inside out, one thought at a time, until your inner voice becomes your greatest source of strength rather than your greatest source of doubt environment. And habits are the hidden architects of confidence, quietly shaping who you are, what you believe, and how far you're willing to go. Many people underestimate how much influence their surroundings and routines have over their sense of self-worth and personal power. They assume confidence is a product of innate talent, luck, or natural charisma, when in reality, it is nurtured or eroded by the world you immerse yourself in and the daily practices you commit to. Every choice, from the people you spend time with to the media you consume, and from the words you speak to the actions you take, forms the landscape of your confidence. The moment you understand that environment and habits are not peripheral but central to your sense of self, you gain the power to consciously craft both, shaping the person you are becoming with intention and precision. Consider your environment first. The people around you, the conversations you hear, the expectations in your social circles, all of these silently influence your perception of what is possible. If you surround yourself with individuals who constantly doubt themselves or belittle the efforts of others, their pessimism leaks into your mind. You start questioning your own abilities, doubting your decisions, and shrinking from challenges that might otherwise energize you. Conversely, if your environment is filled with people who pursue growth, take responsibility, and believe in the power of effort, you are subtly coached to adopt those same patterns. Confidence thrives in a fertile environment where curiosity, effort, and resilience are celebrated. It falters in a desert where negativity, fear, and complacency dominate. This is why successful people are meticulous about who they spend time with, not out of arrogance, but because they understand the invisible forces shaping their mindset. Physical space also plays a role. Your surroundings affect your mood, your focus, and ultimately your willingness to act. A cluttered, chaotic environment breeds distraction and stress, which drains confidence, while a space that is organized, intentional, and inspiring fosters clarity and action. The external world, though often overlooked, communicates to your subconscious mind about what is possible and what is acceptable. When you live or work in environments that signal order, ambition, and possibility, your internal state mirrors that. You begin to act as someone capable, as someone who is prepared, as someone worthy of success. Environments aren't merely backdrops, they are active participants in shaping the strength of your inner belief. Habits amplify the influence of your environment, translating your surroundings into tangible personal outcomes. Habits are the repeated behaviors that define who you are over time. While motivation is fleeting, habits are enduring. They are the mechanism through which potential becomes competence, and competence becomes confidence. The most confident people aren't necessarily more talented. They are disciplined. They have created daily routines that reinforce competence, mastery, and self-respect. These routines are composed of small actions repeated consistently that signal to their subconscious, I am reliable, capable, and proactive. Every habit, no matter how minor, either strengthens your confidence or chips away at it. Skipping habits of preparation, reflection, or effort may seem trivial in a single instance, but over time, they accumulate into a silent erosion of self-trust. The key is not to chase grand gestures of courage or moments of inspiration, but to engineer your daily life in a way that reinforces your sense of ability. This starts with identifying habits that drain confidence and replacing them with those that build it. Habits of procrastination, avoidance, and negative self-talk weaken the mind's sense of competence. Habits of preparation, reflection, accountability, and intentional action strengthen it. Over time, these habits become automatic, and your identity shifts without the need for constant conscious effort. Confidence is no longer something you chase. It becomes a natural outcome of the systems and behaviors you have installed in your life. Your environment and habits also intersect in critical ways. For instance, if you adopt a habit of reading or listening to uplifting, educational, or empowering material every day, you are shaping your internal environment to align with your goals. If you engage in physical exercise, you not only strengthen your body, but reinforce discipline and resilience in your mind. If you track your progress, review your wins, and plan your days with intention, you are cultivating a landscape in which confidence can grow and flourish. The combination of supportive surroundings and empowering routines creates a feedback loop where belief leads to action, action reinforces identity, and identity strengthens belief. This loop is the foundation of lasting confidence. Another crucial factor is the emotional environment you cultivate internally. Habits of reflection, gratitude, and self-compassion create an internal climate where confidence can thrive. If you allow constant self-criticism, resentment, or comparison to dominate your thoughts, your internal environment becomes toxic and confidence struggles to survive. Just as you would avoid toxic people and chaotic spaces externally, you must manage your internal environment with equal vigilance. Emotional habits, such as pausing before reacting, acknowledging achievements, and reframing setbacks as lessons, condition your mind to see challenges as opportunities rather than threats. These habits train your mind to act with courage, resilience, and resourcefulness, all of which are essential components of confidence. The consistency of these habits is what turns them from actions into identity. You do not become confident by taking one heroic step and then stopping. You become confident by living in a way that consistently reinforces your ability to act, adapt, and overcome. The repetition of intentional habits signals to your subconscious that you are dependable, capable, and deserving of success. Over time, this becomes your default state. The world may present obstacles, criticism, or setbacks, but your internal systems, your habits, and environment ensure that your confidence remains anchored. It is this structure, more than any external accolade or approval, that makes confidence resilient and sustainable. Environment and habits also determine how you handle risk, uncertainty, and adversity. A supportive environment gives you examples to follow, a safety net to lean on, and inspiration to keep moving. Habits of preparation, reflection, and incremental growth equip you with tools to face challenges effectively. Together, they create a sense of readiness, which is the core of true confidence. When you know your surroundings support your goals and your routines prepare you to act, fear diminishes because you have invested in yourself and your context. You do not rely on luck or permission, you rely on the systems you have built, and that creates a steady, unshakable form of confidence. Yet, many people fail to recognize the subtle but powerful ways in which their environment and habits erode confidence. Toxic relationships, cluttered spaces, negative media, inconsistent routines, procrastination, avoidance, and unexamined self-talk all accumulate silently, reducing the mind's sense of possibility. Like water gradually wearing down stone, these influences can reshape your belief system without your awareness. That is why conscious attention is necessary. You must actively choose the people, spaces, and routines that serve you. Every choice matters. Every repeated action compounds. Every day is an opportunity to either fortify your confidence or undermine it. This understanding also empowers you with control. You cannot control every external circumstance, but you can control the environment you immerse yourself in and the habits you commit to. By deliberately selecting supportive friends, mentors, and communities, you create external reinforcement for confidence. By adopting routines that cultivate competence, resilience, and discipline, you create internal reinforcement. When these two forces align, external and internal, you generate a multiplier effect. Confidence grows faster, lasts longer, and withstands the inevitable challenges of life. It becomes less about luck, charisma, or circumstance, and more about intentional living and consistent practice. Every confident person, whether visible to the world or quietly succeeding in private, has mastered this principle in one way or another. They understand that confidence is not a fleeting feeling, but a condition cultivated over time through the careful design of environment and habits. They understand that it is not spontaneous, but constructed, brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. And they understand that when these forces are neglected, confidence becomes fragile, temporary, and dependent on the approval of others, rather than anchored in the consistent reinforcement of deliberate practices. The real power of environment and habits is that they make confidence predictable. You no longer need to wait for inspiration or permission. You no longer need to rely on chance encounters or external validation. Instead, you create the conditions that reliably produce confident behavior. You surround yourself with reminders of possibility, immerse yourself in patterns of preparation and execution, and repeat small wins until they become automatic. Over time, your confidence is no longer reactive, it is proactive. It becomes a built-in feature of who you are because you have created a life that supports it at every level, internally, externally, physically, emotionally, and mentally. It is no longer dependent on fleeting motivation, praise, or circumstance, because it has been engineered through the environment you inhabit and the habits you cultivate, and it grows stronger with every intentional choice you make.